I would like to shift our conversation towards the broader security considerations within the Beam ecosystem. As someone with your perspective, I think this will be very, very interesting and helpful. My question would be about the Erlang Ecosystem Foundation's newest achievement, which is becoming the CVE numbering authority. And it's a very important milestone, I think. And I wanted to ask you, what were the driving factors behind pursuing this specific designation for it?
There was multiple reasons for us to go and look into that possibility. The first one is if there is no specific CNA or CV numbering authority, then essentially all issues bubble up to the root, and that is MITRE in our case. And MITRE is a very, very cool organization by doing all of this, but at the same time, they're getting reports from thousands of different ecosystems. They also get swamped sometimes with a lot of reports, and so that results in basically a bit of a sluggish process. And also, they don't have specific knowledge about our ecosystem. They don't know if a string to atom somewhere, what that actually means. And so our idea was to be basically the CNA for all hex packages, also for Erlang, Elixir, Gleam, Hex itself, and a few other things. Mm-hmm. And we really wanted to be the organization that handles all of this because we have more resources available for our ecosystem than MITRE has. We have more in-depth understanding of what vulnerabilities actually are in our ecosystem. And we can also track a lot more metadata with the vulnerabilities, which will allow us to also improve the tooling about it. For example, the recent SSH vulnerability in Erlang, we're able to track which OTP application it is, which module it is, maybe even which function it is, and that will allow us in the future to build a lot better tooling to make sure that these scanners get smarter and smarter.
Right. So meaning that now that the Ecosystem Foundation will have it will be more closer to the issues, because MITRE is probably dealing with other types of vulnerabilities, maybe cannot even how can I say it? It cannot really be mapped to the certain issues that the Erlang the Beam in general has. So now you are going to be creating these tickets, right? So you will be able to actually generate them, and then we can access it as people who use the Beam. Can we access it directly through you? Do you have like a sort of an interface where we can maybe subscribe to, get some feed from, where every time there is a new vulnerability, we can maybe have it sent to us, for example, by email or something like that?
Every CNA has to publish a list publicly with all the issued CVEs. And we're doing that on our website on cna.erlef.org/CVEs. And you're going to have a complete list of all the issues that we have released. To be clear, if there is a more specific CNA, so let's, for example, say a Google library on Hex has a security issue, then Google probably has a more specific CNA than our essential fallback, which means that probably it's not going to be published with us. So just be aware that this is in no way complete, and it also doesn't contain past vulnerabilities that were not issued by us. The website itself also has a JavaScript or a JSON endpoint essentially to list all the vulnerabilities, so you can certainly build tooling based on that. And since we're publishing to the CVE list, a lot of automated tooling will also pick that up. So you're going to be able to see these vulnerabilities, for example, with the OSV database or with GitHub's advisory database and a lot of other places. If you specifically are interested in vulnerabilities of a project, for example, Erlang is publishing all new vulnerabilities as a GitHub advisory as well. You can just go on GitHub and click watch and just check the security advisories part, and you're going to get a notification every time Erlang publishes something.
All right. And when Erlang publishes something, do you also have the same published form on your side, meaning this new this CVE website that you're listing in? So, or are they going to be separate this time?
There are two separate places. So Erlang is always going to publish theirs, and we are going to publish ours. Usually they should be more or less the same, but we're not exactly catering to the same audience. So ours will have a lot more metadata, like vulnerability enumeration numbers, for example, or CVSS scores and those kind of things. While probably the one published by Erlang is a bit more of a, let's say, a human readable write-up. But essentially, it's going to be a combination of both that is probably going to get you the furthest. And with projects that are not using GitHub advisories like Erlang is planning to, we can't require projects to do something like that, and they might not even be on GitHub. We're certainly going to publish our side, but how the project deals with it, we can only make recommendations. So it might differ from project to project.
Nice, perfect. And okay, looking at the regulatory developments, I'm talking about something like the EU's Cyber Resilience Act, and this is going to influence somehow the open source projects that are being maintained within the Beam ecosystem.
The CNA has a special status for open source, and it highly depends if you're just a private individual or if you're something like a foundation called usually a steward when we're talking about the CNA, CRA, or if you are a manufacturer, so basically making money out of it. And depending in which category you fall, you're going to have different implications. If you're just a private individual, you're probably not going to have any impact besides maybe a corporate entity nagging on you to do things because they want you to do it instead of doing it themselves. But you don't have any obligations to do things. As a steward, we do have certain requirements. So certainly the EF will want to be a steward of certain open source projects. Like, for example, we have to responsibly disclose our vulnerabilities. But we don't have the full requirements like a manufacturer has. A manufacturer will have to do the full catalog. It's not yet out exactly what it means. So some parts are clear, like the vulnerability management, but others, we're still waiting for the drafts of the standards. And they certainly are going to have most impact here. And essentially, as a foundation supporting the ecosystem, we see it as our job to make it simple for manufacturers using our technology to do so. So we're probably going further than what we're required to do just to make sure that we can essentially push the adoption of our ecosystem by being more than just barely ready for this whole thing, but actually make it easy to use our technologies.
Nice. And okay, so from your perspective, what security vulnerabilities and overlooked risks that engineers should be working on when they are dealing with the Beam technology? So something like what should they be mindful of when they are deploying systems using the Beam? So the first thing that should come to their mind that they should be aware of, security-wise, of course.
A lot of Beam engineers tend to think that we're kind of above most of the security issues. And with some, I even agree. Like, for example, we're a memory-safe language, so there's not a lot of surface there to fuck up. But there is a lot of other things you can do still wrong. You can still do SQL injection and XSS, and essentially the same things apply that as with any other ecosystem out there. And so I would just like Beam engineers to do the same amount, or in a perfect world, do more than other ecosystems and really take security seriously. There is a few things which are specific to the Beam. For example, we published a report recently where we found a lot of Beam nodes, or basically clustering nodes online via Shodan, just people not securing Beam clustering. And those are also things you should probably have a look at because the Beam offers a lot of capabilities, but you also need to lock them down. Otherwise, they're becoming a liability.
And Could you maybe walk us through your approach to security issue management in open source? So I'm talking from the disclosure protocols to the triaging process and the community notifications. I mean, how would be the best scenario to go through these steps?
The first thing you should get started with is actually defining a security policy. Even if you never had an issue, you should tell people how to reach out if they actually found something, and reach out in a private manner, because you probably don't want the security vulnerability in a public issue tracker or something like that. There's lots of templates you can use to just slap on your repository, where you essentially just replace the email address and maybe set up a GPG key if you really want to go far. And I also really recommend, since a lot of open source is happening on GitHub nowadays, to use their private vulnerability reporting feature, which you can enable, because then the reporter will get a very nice interface where you can input all the information, and you're going to get a secure notification in the back, and you can use a lot of tooling that will help you with the whole process. Once you actually received a report, it's important to validate this is an actual thing. Do we even need to care? We see a lot of reports nowadays also, luckily not in the Beam ecosystem, but outside, just being written by AI and being just bullshit in the end. And you need to sort out the vulnerabilities that are actual vulnerabilities and treat them properly, but you can also just discard the rest. If it is an actual vulnerability, I would encourage you to implement a fix. If you're using the GitHub advisory feature, you can also do like private forks specifically for this fix, and a few other things that will help you. The more severe it is, the less I would recommend just waiting until the next big release comes around anyways, but maybe doing a hot fix actually. Once you have a fix out, you can then publish the advisory with it. I would recommend getting a CVE ID for it as well, which would mean that you basically contact me, Bram, and Ingela, which are running the CNA for the ecosystem. And we're going to help you through the whole disclosure process as well. But essentially, you just give us the info. We might have a few questions. We're giving you the ID to stick in there, and this is the ID you should use to communicate with people about it. Once it is released, it depends a bit again on the severity. If you think this is something that could actually be exploited right now, it would probably be good to do some announcements. Right now, the communication channels to reach most of the Beam are not that simple. So I would recommend, for example, a forum post, and maybe also one on Twitter, and maybe one on the Elixir Slack. Kind of try to reach your users depending where they are. And after that, you have essentially done your job. One last thing you should consider is right now, Hex does not have vulnerability scanning built in. So if you're installing something that is vulnerable, Hex, the client, or Mix in this case, will not tell you that you downloaded something scary. And we're working on improving that as well. So there should be a change on that soon. But as it is right now, I would recommend retiring the version that is affected on Hex for security reasons. There is a retire command and also some documentation on Hex on how to do that.
That's good to know. Yeah. So, okay. So on something else now, a little bit related, but not really. So which emerging security developments are you finding most promising right now?
I'm looking a lot into Salsa. Salsa is an attestation framework. The most important parts to me right now are the build attestations. The interesting part about this is if you're pulling in a dependency from Hex, then you're assuming that the code that is in this dependency came from the linked GitHub or whatever repository, and that it wasn't changed in between.
Right.
But that's not necessarily the case. You would have to check, because theoretically, I can publish anything to Hex that is not similar to the source code at all.
That's right.
And I would like to close that gap. And the way to do this is essentially by using build attestations. which means that you would need to publish your Hex package with a CI, being GitHub CI or with GitLab or other supported providers. And we would essentially sign, or GitHub or GitLab would sign, that you use the specific CI on a specific branch, on a specific commit to actually push that package. And
Nice.
we can verify that after the fact.
Well, that's very, very specific. That's very good. Yes. All right. So there is no any way of tampering. So yeah. So you will get whatever you know is the version that you would like to see. All right.
Yes. That doesn't mean it's good, because I could still just put stuff into my Git repository and publish it as is. I could put a script in that deletes your entire hard drive if I wanted to. But at least I know it wasn't changed. It's the same as what I'm.
Yes.
If I go look, it's going to be the same on Hex that is in those packages. And yeah, this is just one tiny part. We have lots more that we're looking into, but that's one of the projects that excites me to actually get done.
All right, that sounds good. And so just for developers who are interested in contributing to the security enhancement of the ecosystem, I know this is a very important question. So what are the pathways or starting points that you would recommend for someone just to contribute to help you with setting up all of this infrastructure that you are putting together?
I'm currently coordinating all those efforts via the EEF's security working group. And if you just want to listen in to see what's happening, you are always welcome to join into our monthly call. At the same time, I published the AGIS initiative, which is a supply chain security and compliance initiative, on the security working group's website. So you can see what I'm already actively working towards. If you think you can help out with any of that, or even your company would be willing to support our efforts, then that would be really, really great. And you can just contact me directly about that.
Thank you very much, Jonathan, for your time. I think we learned a lot today. So thank you so much for contributing.
Thank you for having me.